Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll share the content. Previous class, we were discussing about how to call, like how to call the functions or the procedures or the object, like referencing an object which is from different machines, like remote invocation. We were discussing like just theory part of it. Okay, so we had discussed about request client server communication in distributed systems, that is request reply protocol. And today's class, I'll just go through about RMI, remote method invocation, and remote procedure. So what is the difference between RMI and RPC? Okay, before that you're supposed to know some of the terms. What are those? Okay, so first term is local objects. So what do you mean by local objects? So the local objects are the objects that are within the process's address space, like in your local machines, or the same address space as your process resides. So that those type of objects are referred as local objects, like your normal C++ object or Java object that you create in your local machines. Those are all considered to be local objects. What is object reference? An identifier via which objects can be accessed, like your pointers. Okay, so that is object reference. So what do you mean by interface? Interface is nothing but it will be having only the definition, like only the declaration type. So when a method has been defined, the interface for the same class or this thing will contain only the only the declaration part of it, the type of arguments it takes and what number of arguments it takes, only that will be there, not the implementation details. So that is nothing but interface. It provides a definition of the signatures of a set of methods, but without specifying their implementation. Okay, that is how the object oriented concept implements the abstraction. Okay, only the declaration is visible but not the definition. Okay, so that is interface. So what do you mean by remote objects? Remote objects, unlike local objects, they cross multiple processes address spaces. They share multiple processes address spaces. Okay. So a remote method invocation, RMI. So method invocation between the objects in different processes. You have seen in your NS like simulation lab, there we had used socket programming for the communication between the application that run on different machines. Okay, like different processes. So that is remote method invocation. And you have remote procedure call also. The difference between this remote method invocation and remote procedure call is remote method invocation is object based, but RPC is not object based. It is just the procedure call. Okay, so it is non-object based systems. Remote objects, objects that can receive remote invocation. Remote object reference, it is an identifier that can be used globally throughout a distributed system, like normal object interference, normal object reference. Remote object reference is reference to an object which is there in the remote machine. Okay, remote interface, same like interface. Every remote object has a remote interface that specifies which of its methods can be invoked remotely. So remote interface, all the methods cannot be accessed remotely. Okay, so only few of the methods which is specified in the interface, remote interface, can be accessed remotely. Okay, that is remote interface. So this is the pictorial representation of the same. You can see this is an object. Okay, and it provides some of the interfaces, that is M1, M2 and M3. This interface will provide some of the declaration for some methods that can be invoked remotely to this particular process. Okay, so that this can access this object remotely by by looking at the interface provided for this particular like the application. This one, which is in the same address space of the object resides, so it is a local process that can access this particular object, okay, through the normal interface which is being provided for the same. Okay, this is local object address space and it is remote address. Okay, so this is just give the pictorial representation of remote objects and its remote interface. So not all the methods which is seen to this particular process is not like it is seen to this. Maybe some of them are visible that can be accessed remotely, not all. Okay, so the reference can have this particular structure. It can have IP address, port number, object number, signature, and time. This combination may have the compress this object reference. Okay. So remote and local method invocation. So how to invoke locally and how to how it looks like invoking a method from remote machines. So you can see this is host A and this is host B, and you have some of the processes here and some of the process remotely accessing the same object. Okay, so when this objects access something from other object or other machines, this will be not in the same address space. That time it will be referred as remote invocation. Okay, you can see this A is accessing something from B, remote invocation, and B is accessing this process, it is accessing something from object from C. This is local invocation because they share the common address space. Okay, this invocation is also local invocation. This is also local invocation. Okay, since it is another process. Okay, so that is like this particular object has been invoked by our reference. This object is referencing this. So again, it is a remote invocation. Okay, from this you can see what is the difference between remote and local method invocation. Okay, so local invocation between objects on same process, remote invocation between objects on different process. Okay. So next comes remote. So you can see here the everything in remote invocation, RMI, remote method invocation, everything is object based. Okay, so between the objects of the same process, between the objects of the different process, it is object based. But RPC is not object based. In here, procedure or the method is been called. Okay, so we'll discuss about RPC also.
Ma'am, we can't hear you.
Now I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. Remote procedure call, procedures on remote machine. So it's not that only object reference need to be passed and only the object need, like can be accessed from one machine to another machine. Only even the methods with the interface provided can be accessed from one machine to another machine. Okay, so procedures which can run on like which runs on remote machines can be accessed locally or remotely by other process. It is possible through a remote procedure call. Okay, so remote like you using remote procedure call as base. So the caller or the developers or the programmers need not to know about the implementation details here. Okay, so that abstraction is also incorporated. So some of the design issues with RPC is style of programming, programming with the interface. Each of these issues has been discussed like in details also. Call semantics, key issue of transparency and how it relates to other remote procedure calls. Okay, first design issue is style of programming. As you know, like now programs are being divided into modules. Okay, all the programs are divided into modules and there is possibility that each module will interact with other to do particular task. Okay, so it is there in all the programs. This communication between the modules can be possible by means of procedure calls between modules. So each modules will have number of procedures and one module call the procedure which is defined in other module and they access directly or indirectly to perform all tasks. Okay, in order to control this type of interactions, okay, it is required but you need to control this type of interactions because it cannot be transparent always. Okay, an interface need to be defined, that is explicit interface, that will have the method specification, not the definition. Just the specification will be there for method which is visible to all other modules to call. So now the modules can directly access the specification and they just invoke that method by the reference given. Okay, the interface of a module specifies the procedures and the variables that can be accessed from other modules. Okay, so similarly, even in distributed, this is with respect to the normal, like how interface works. Even with the distributed systems, there is an interface required. Service, that interface is referred as service interface. Okay, which is used to refer to the specification of the procedures that can be that are offered by the server. Here in distributed systems, we'll have that system like client machine and server machine. Okay, so in server machine we will have service interface which will be giving you the specification for the procedures that can be called or invoked by other machines. Okay, so what are the advantages with this interface, with this service interface are concerned only with the abstraction of service interface and not implementation details. See, abstraction is incorporated. That means only the specification is visible, not the definition, not the implementation details, okay, which is unwanted for the user to use it. Programmers also no need to know the programming language or underlying platform. Only the explicit interface or the service interface has been provided, and your RMI compiler or RPC compiler will take care of it to present. Like you know the concept of external data representation. It will take care of this programming language conflicts. Okay, then implementations can be possible as the interface. The external was implementation, any changes you make to the implementation, the external view will remain same. Okay, which is that whatever the changes has been made to the implementation is completely not visible to the outer world. Okay, these are the advantages you have if you incorporate interface in distributed systems. Okay, that is service interface. Okay, so distributed RPC, the definition, but the distributed system, it's not like static. Every time all the it's completely distributed in nature. Okay, because of that, this interface, providing explicit or the service interface will face some issues again. Okay, so because it cannot, the issues may be one process running in one machine cannot directly access the process or the objects or methods which is in the different address space or in the different process. It is not possible all the time. It is not possible. And parameter passing mechanisms used in local procedure calls. Some mechanism is used in local procedure calls, which is not suitable for all this time. Or all the time you cannot consider call by value, call by reference, which is may not be suitable all the time. Okay. And another one is the way of calling the method in local machine is different, and in the remote modules it is different. That is also there. So because of this nature, the only providing service interface may not be the solution to have a successful distributed environment. Okay, so to avoid this particular problem, they've come up with the interface definition language. Okay, IDL, interface definition language. What this language means, it is designed to allow procedures implemented in different languages to invoke one another. So the procedures, this particular language will allow procedure which is written in one language, okay, can access the procedure which is written in other language. This definition, ideal example I'll give you, it is defined like that. It is possible to understand whatever it is defined in ideal. It is possible for all the systems in the distributed network to understand. Okay. IDL provides a notation for defining interfaces in which each of the parameter of an operation may be described as an input or output. See what interface contains? It contains only the specification. If you write in one language, suppose you write it in Java, you would use different methods to specify it, arguments. You write it in Corba, you use different method to specify these arguments. But what are these arguments? Are input and output arguments. Okay, so what this ideal does is it'll have just two types, either input argument or output argument. It will specify like that so that all languages or its compiler will understand what it is. Okay, I'll show you one example. This example you can see, this is Corba ideal example. This is interface definition language for Corba. For here one structure with the person, name, place, year is been defined, and interface person list is defined. Here you can see the arguments passed. Okay, and see the specification about the arguments. Read only attribute, string is list name. So this, all the other languages, whatever they use, they also understand what it is. It's an attribute which is read only list name. And here you can see add person. Here see this in is used, keyword is used. That means it's a input argument. Okay, and get person, this in string name, this is a input argument, and out person p, this is a output argument. Okay, see this is what is specified in ideal. This any language, even if it is for the other language also, they also use the same thing, so that this is completely transparent, so this is understood by everyone. Okay, so this is how interface in distributed system interface definition language is being used. Why it is used? Yes, roll number 60 from A section. Roll number 60 from A section. 60. Absent. B section.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Why ideal is been used?
The ideals, it is used, ma'am, 1 second.
You know what is ideal by now?
Confused.
Yeah,
Yes,
fine. That is fine. You know why ideal is being used then. Interface definition language. What is interface?
Hello.
Hello. What is interface? Interface. You have gone through the, like you have already gone through it, like in Java interface and all. What it is actually? Fine. 50. 50 from.
Hello. Yeah, like interface like is a collection of definitions and functions
Definitions will
like,
be there or declarations will be there?
definitions will be there and function declarations will be there.
Okay. Correct.
And
Function
yeah,
declaration will be there.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, fine. Fine. Okay. So the next design issue here, remote procedure call, is call semantics. Okay. Call semantics is a little tricky to understand. It's there in the textbook also, but it is very vast and it is like a lot of explanation is there. So better you go through the PPT for more understanding. So that's the reason I've put everything in the PPT only. So RPC call semantics. So here, this table you can see here. So here, some of the fault tolerance measures is been specified. One is retransmit request message. This is one measure, fault tolerance measure. Then another one is duplicate filtering. Then re-execute procedure or retransmit replay. So these three are calls like fault tolerance measures. Based on what this is set, like whether it is applied or not, some of the call semantics are been defined. Okay, so based on these fault tolerance measures are used or not, call semantics are defined. They are maybe semantics, at least once semantics, at most once semantics. At most once semantics. So these three are the call semantics. Okay, so what are these measures, controls? Okay, first one is retransmit request message. Retransmit request message controls whether to retransmit the request message until either a reply is received or the server assumed to be have failed. Okay, controls whether to retransmit the request message until either a reply is received or the server is assumed to have failed. This means what? There is no, like, only once the message has been sent, request message is been sent, it is executed. Okay, no acknowledgement, no reply, nothing, just to control that retry request message. This is one type of measure. Another one is duplicate filtering. Duplicate filtering means controls when retransmissions are used and whether to filter out duplicate request at the server. So this will decide that whether to duplicate, like maybe many retransmitting, like many messages are being retransmitted at this to the server. It at the server side, it will decide whether to sort out, whether to remove that duplicate request. Okay, so that is duplicate filtering. Then retransmission of results. This is all the three, like it controls whether to keep a history of result messages. Some of the result messages are being generated. It decides, this measure decides whether to keep such results so that next time for the same procedure, again the request comes, whether to execute that procedure once or send the same results which has been stored from this previous calculation. Okay, so that is retransmission of results. There are three measures: retransmit request message, duplicate filtering, re-execute procedures, or transmit reply. Okay, so in retransmit request, what it controls? It controls whether to retry the message until a reply is received or the server is assumed to have failed, whether to retry or to assume that whether the server has been failed or not, because it has not received any reply from the server. That is one measure. Another measure is duplicate filtering, where number of retransmitted requests is been arrived at the server. This particular measure decides whether to filter out such request at the server or not. Okay. Then retransmission of the results. What it controls is it just measures like whether to keep the previous calculation or the previous history results to make sure, I mean, to such a way that second time when the request for the same procedure comes, whether to send the previously calculated results or not. Okay, these are some of the measures. Okay, based on these measures, these semantics are being defined. See here, maybe semantics. See, retransmit request message is not, this is not defined here. This measure is not defined. That means what? When it is not defined, that means what? What you understand from this? The request message is sent only once. Retransmit is not there. Request message is sent only once. Whether you receive the reply or not, it doesn't matter. Okay, that is maybe semantics. At least once semantics, retransmit request message is there, but duplicate filtering is not there. Okay, so that means what? Number of requests can be sent many times, but it will not be filtered out at the server side. Re-execute procedure will happen because many times the request has been sent. Okay, so here next one, at most once. Retransmit request message is there. Duplicate filtering is also there. That means only one request will be present at the server side. And once the execution has been done, only once the execution will happen because duplicate filtering is there. This time, see, many times the execution will happen because duplicate filtering is not there. Re-execute, execute again and again, the same procedure. Here, retransmit, reply, the reply only once the at most once the procedure has been executed, even though you have number of requests at the server, and the reply is sent back to the client. This measure. So that is at most once semantics. Okay, understood this one? Yes, any doubts here? Important it is. Or I need to explain it again. Understood or not? Yes or no? I will not ask any questions. Just tell me yes or no.
Ma'am, can you please explain meaning of semantics again?
Semantics, yeah. Like what you have not understood from this? Semantics means these three.
Yeah, like
Or
what is
measures
maybe at
you
least once?
understood? Measures?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I have explanation for this. Measures you understood, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So maybe semantics. With maybe semantics, the remote procedure call may be executed once or not at all. See this. Remote procedure call executes either once or not at all because nothing is retransmitted here. Request is not retransmitted. So once you send the request, either it is executed at the server side or it is not. Correct. So that because this is not there, this measure is not there. That is maybe semantics. Arises when no fault tolerance measures are applied. See, none of the fault tolerance measures are being applied here. This also not applied, this also not applied, this also not applied. That time this particular semantics will arrive. Okay. So, yeah. And can suffer from the following types of failure happens because omission failure if the request or result is lost. Crash failure when the server containing the remote operation fails. So anything happens at the sender receiver like the server side, it is not known to this. Only once it will, if it is executed at the server side, the reply is given. If it is not executed at the server, this will be considered as failure. Okay, this type of semantics is useful only when the application in which failure the possibility is very less. Okay, occasional fail calls are acceptable. Okay, understood maybe semantics? Maybe.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Next, at least once semantics. Go through this table first. At least once semantics. What is there? Retransmit request message. This is there. This fault tolerance measure has been applied. That means number of like if one request is sent, reply is not there. That time again one more request has been sent. Like many times the request has been sent to the server. Duplicate filtering is not there. That means that the duplicate requests are not being filtered. Okay, that means re-execute again and again, keep on executing at least once definitely it is going to execute. If there are number of requests, re-executing the procedure will be there. That is at least once. Okay, with at least once, the invoker receives either a result, in which case the invoker knows that the procedure was executed at least once, or an exception informing that no result is received. Okay, at least once semantics can be achieved by the retransmission of request messages, which mask the omission failure of the request or result. So this omission failure will not occur when you apply this at least one semantics at the server side. At least one semantics can again suffer from some of the failures, that is crash failure, and the server of containing the procedure fails, arbitrary failure. In cases when the request message is retransmitted, the remote server may receive it and execute the procedure more than once, possibly causing wrong values to be stored or returned. Okay, so why this happens? Why arbitrary failure happens? Which measure is not being applied here? Out of this, which this measure is not applied? Because of that, the crash, again, wrong values may be returned.
Filtering.
Filtering is not there. Yes, filtering is not there. Okay, so the one more, that is at most once. With at most once, the solution to the previous one. Here the filtering is there. The caller receives either a result, in which case the caller knows that the procedure was executed exactly once, or an exception informing it that no result was received, in which case the procedure will have be executed either once or not at all. Okay, so if it is either once, if it is once, the result is been sent. If it is not executed, the exception will be sent. Okay, retransmit until acknowledged with duplicate suppression. This is the mechanism. So duplicate filtering is there until you get the reply, you keep on retransmitting. Okay, so yeah, next, implementation of RPC. Okay, these are the building blocks for RPC. One is client stub procedure. Okay, communication module, any communication medium. Then communication is through messages. Okay, so it is here request reply protocol is being used. Client stub procedure. So here you have two proxies, like you know the proxy concept. Okay, just to hidden the details about the server and the client, we use proxy. Okay, same in RMI. Here also the proxies at the client side is called a stub. Okay, client stub, and proxy at the server side is called as server stub. Okay, so now client stub procedure, what it does? Marshalling. You know what is marshalling? Covering. Okay, for the external representation. Sending, unmarshalling. This is what is done by stub procedure of the client. Dispatcher. Any one of these server process will be considered as dispatcher. Okay, then server stub. So server stub is again does the same thing like client stub. It does unmarshalling, calling, and marshalling. So these are the building blocks for RPC, remote procedure calls. Okay, what are the steps that is taken during RPC? That is, a client invokes a client stub procedure, passing parameters in the usual way. The client stub resides within the client's own address space. See, initially the client invokes client stub procedure. Why? How it invokes? By passing the message. Here the message transmission will happen. Okay, so whatever the communication may be, so what it is transmitting is data. So initially it will invoke the stub procedure. What stub procedure will do that is, it will just marshal the data or unmarshal the data. Okay, through the communication module, it will send the request to the server process. Server process, again, it will have the stub procedure. Again, it's a proxy again. Okay, so it will do that unmarshalling and marshalling. Like here it marshals the data. Here it unmarshals the data initially, and invoke that procedure, which is called from the remote machine. Okay, then the result is again marshaled from the server process, and it has been sent as a reply to the client process. So see, that is what is explained here. The client stub marshals the parameters into a message, Marshalling includes converting the representation of the parameters into a standard format and copying each parameter into the message. Okay, then again client stub passes the message to the transport layer, which is responsible for having the communication between the two, which sends it to the remote server machine. On the server, the transport layer passes the message to a server stub, which unmarshals the parameters and calls the desired server routine using the regular procedure call mechanism. Okay, when the server procedure completes, it returns to the server stub. So once everything is executed, it will be passed to the server stub. Again, via procedure call return. You know, stack is been used for the procedure call return just to store the address, which marshals the return values into a message. Okay, the communication is only through the message. In distributed systems, no, the communication is only through the message. The whatever the data, any type, all the types of data has been converted into a message, serial message. The server stub then hands the message to the transport layer. The transport layer then sends the result message back to the client transport layer, which hands the message back to the client stub. See, here you can see client will not know whatever it has been happening in the network, whether the call is taking to the remote places, whether it is from the server machine, from where the client will just invoke a call thinking that I will get the response as soon as possible. Just that. Okay. So behind that, you can see many things are happening, and client doesn't know anything about the server doesn't know anything about the client, but there is because of this communication, it is possible to have number of processes that can be accessed remotely. Okay, so it is very advantageous, and you can, that is code reuse, and there are many advantages because of this. Okay, so this is a client. So don't be confused with RPC and RMI. RMI is object based, RPC is procedure based. Okay, so in RMI, the object is serialized, that serialization, you know, and we will discuss the case study also. For RMI, we'll discuss Java RMI, and for RPC, we'll discuss Sun RPC. Okay, that time you will understand it clearly how what is happening, and you can try on your own. You know Java, you can Java RMI, you can try invoke like implementing on your own. I can pass you the code also if you want. Okay. This is about RPC. Sun RPC case study we'll see in the next class. RMI will discuss in this class. One Java RMI. Okay, case study. Any doubt here? Remote procedure call, if you want to ask. Just 5 minutes break we'll take, and we'll continue with the case study. Okay. I've shared the attendance status of you all. Just go through it, okay? If you have any discrepancies, just let me know. And the people who have logged out like before or after logged in after 15 minutes, they're marked absent. Okay. Is it visible, the PDF? Am I audible? Shall we start? Yes. It's visible, right? The PDF.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So we'll just, I will just go through the RMI, the case study. So anyway, I'll be passing this to you all. Just go through it if you want to implement. It's just for the implementation purpose. Okay. So if you want to implement the same, you can try. Okay. So it's there in the syllabus also. But Sun RPC, you have to go again. I'll pass the Sun RPC case study in the slides so that you need to go through on your own and just understand what it is. Java RMI, I'll discuss. Okay. So what is RMI? RMI is which allows object to communicate with each other. Okay, so that running remotely machines or local machines or whatever it is just the object communication that is through RMI. Okay, so Java RMI, again the communication between the Java object to invoke method on object running on another machine. So this is like a theory part, it's there like completely it is there, a theory. You just have to go through it. It is easy to understand. RMI provides remote communication between Java program. Okay, it's used for distributed application. RMI application will have two process in it, like two, it is divided into two parts. One is client program, another one is server program. Okay, server program creates some remote objects. So how we have done the socket programming, same way here also you need to implement two Java programs. One is when acts as a client program and one acts as a server program. Okay, server program creates some remote object. Server program has to advertise that remote object that can be accessed remotely, make their references available to the client to invoke method on it. Okay, client program make request for remote objects on server to invoke the method on them. So these two are the requirements. You should have one program for client and one program for server. Okay, should have some of the interface to access programs. Here, stub and skeleton are two important object of the these two remote objects. Stub means now proxies. For RMI, client Java RMI client proxy stub, and for server proxy skeleton. It is referred as skeleton. Okay, stub acts as a gateway for client program. It resides on client side and communicate with skeleton object. Skeleton is proxy from the server side. It establishes the connection between the remote object and transmit the request to it. Okay, skeleton object resides on server program. Okay, it is responsible for passing the request from stub to remote object. Okay, from stub to remote object. The responsibility is of skeletons. Okay, it is not web-based technology because it does not use browsers or HTTP protocol. It comes with its own protocol called as RMI protocol. With the default port number, here you have to use 1099, and you can configure on your own anything. You know how to configure the port number. Both should be same, but client for the server. Okay, in RMI, object communicate, an object on client side communicate with another object on server side. This is known as object to object communication. Okay, through distributed network, object passes between client and server. For this purpose, RMI internally serialize objects. So you have seen in the previous class, I've explained to you about Java serialization. There, complete object is transferred into a serial message. Okay, and that is being transferred actually. Okay, an object created on the server is known as a remote object. The object which is on the server that can be accessed remotely is called as remote object. To put it technically, any object that implements java.rmi.remote interface is known as remote object. So remote object, what it implements? It implements java.rmi.remote interface. Okay, so program, Java program, I don't have to explain it. Prior to RMI, a distributed application was using socket programming for the communication to pass messages. Okay, so for that, programmer needed a low-level message protocol. Data transmission format was also required. You know, like now you used to send the format between processes in the distributed application. With the RMI, what you can do is, unlike socket, you can export an object as a remote object so that other remote processes can access it directly as a Java object. Okay, so you can export that object so that other processes will access it like it's a Java object, not a local object. RMI handles all the underlying networking needed to make your remote method calls work. Okay, so there are a lot of requirements, there are a lot of adjustments need to be done so that the communication happens successfully. That will be handled by RMI. RMI is a Java only distributed object scheme. The distributed objects in an RMI based distributed application have to be implemented in Java. Okay, Java RMI, it's again a language dependent. It has to be implemented in Java. This may be a problem with the interfacing with legacy applications. Legacy applications may be implemented in C or C++. There is a solution. When you have multiple languages, there is a solution to have RMI there also. Okay, we'll discuss that also. Corba, on the other hand, is a language independent distributed object scheme. So Corba can be used when you have a number of languages, different types of languages, which is the applications which is developed using different languages. But comparatively, this Corba, using Corba is more complex than working with the Java RMI. Okay, so that's the reason people go for Java RMI, and they have a compiler which will compile all the languages. Okay. Features of RMI. Since RMI is Java native, integration of its remote object facilities into Java application is seamless. So since this particular RMI is Java native, any applications or the object like applications that is implemented in Java, if that is using it, then it can get the full benefit of it. Okay, so Java application will take completely benefit of RMIs. You can use RMI enabled objects as if they live in the local Java environment. RMI extends the internal garbage. So there is a garbage collection mechanism also that the developer don't have to worry about it. Okay, that is also there like in normal Java application. That garbage collection mechanism is also defined. RMI is platform independent, but it is language independent. Like it is RMI is platform independent, like language independent. You can migrate entire objects to a remote host via object serialization. So again, the same thing, you need to serialize the object so that the complete object can be migrated to other machines. Okay, but this is not possible in Corba. Corba doesn't uses this object serialization. Okay, because it is not language dependent. It can be implemented on many languages. Your options, some of the options, if you want to go to implement this, you have 3 options to implement when you have many heterogeneous components, which is some are written in Java, many heterogeneous components, many systems, many languages, like some are in Java, some are not in Java. That time you have 3 options to move on. One is use RMI. That means if you have code which is not Java, convert it into Java objects using Java native interface. See, this is the solution. You have a Java native interface using which you can wrap the non-Java code into Java objects. Okay, or you can go for Corba since it supports language independent object interfaces. So directly you can use Corba because you have multiple languages. It's just completely language independent. The third option is you have IIOP. Okay, the third option was new IIOP, Internet Inter-Orb Protocol, which allows RMI objects to communicate directly with remote Corba objects over IIOP. So this is how IIOP, Internet Inter-Orb Protocol, you can make RMI objects communicate directly with the different objects. Okay, these 3 options you have. One is if you have applications which are written in Java, some are not written in Java, make sure some non-Java code will be converted into Java objects using Java native interface, or go for Corba, which is complex than Java. Okay, a third option is to use RMI IIOP, where allows RMI objects to communicate directly with remote other objects. how to interfacing with legacy applications, which is written in C or C++. Okay, so there are again some options. If you are going for RMI and native method calls by using Java's native interface, again I told you can wrap the complete C or C++ code with the Java. You can convert that into a Java object. Okay, suppose you are running Java at both the ends. Now you have Java application, complete Java application, avoiding use of Corba, which may overkill. So then don't use Corba. Okay, it is not required actually. You can directly go for RMI. Okay, Corba when you have multiple languages as the native code. Then Corba object implemented in the same language as the native code is co-created. So directly you can go for C or C++. If you have legacy application which is written in C or C++, and you have Corba method for method invocation, remote method invocation, you can directly use it because it can, that language doesn't matter for Corba. Okay, so that one more advantage you have, you don't have to have the Java on the server side also. Okay, or if you are going for RMI over IIOP, RMI objects can communicate directly here with IIOP. Okay, so what is object serialization? The first step, object serialization, to copy an object, convert it into stream of bytes. How? And any object you want to serialize must implement this interface, java.io.serializable interface. Okay, in RMI it is used to marshal or unmarshal method arguments that are objects but not are remote objects. Any object argument to a method, any argument to a method you pass some object. Okay, so that on remote object RMI must implement serializable interface. Okay, so this is the architecture. Client program you have stub which acts as a proxy, skeleton which also acts as a proxy for the server side, and you have a remote reference layer which will take care of the communication between them and make sure that the client will not get to know about from where the object has been referred and from where the result has come. Okay, that is what the task of remote reference layer. Okay, from these layer, what is application layer? Application layer is nothing but actual systems, your systems. The client Java program communicates with other Java program on the server side. Okay, then proxy layer, you know what it does. I have explained that to you. Then marshalling and unmarshalling also, you know what it does. It will convert the data into special format which is suitable for passing through the distributed environment. RMI mechanism, it just simplify what it does is it serialize the objects. Okay, stub marshals the data of client. Here who will marshal the data? Stub from the client, skeleton from the server will do the marshalling and unmarshalling task. Okay, so marshalling and unmarshalling are done by the RMI runtime mechanism implicitly without any programmers. You don't have to code anything for this. Okay, when you implement something with the RMI remote interface, don't have to code for marshalling or unmarshalling. It will be done implicitly. Okay, so the remote reference layer, the new layer, what it does, proxies are implicitly connected to RMI mechanism through remote reference layer. These proxies like stub and skeletons are connected through remote reference layer, the layer which is responsible for object communication and transfer of object between the client and server. Okay, it is also responsible for dealing with semantics of remote invocation and implementation. Now you know what is semantics. Okay, remote reference layer is responsible for that. How to deal with, what type of request is it, which fault tolerance measure to apply. So everything will be decided by this particular layer. Okay, transport layer extra, it is not there. It is along with the remote reference layer, it is there, transport layer. Okay, so some of the calls for naming, static, void, bind. So you associate specified name to the remote object. Okay, that is through this call, bind. You are giving some name to the remote object. So that is through bind. Okay, then static string, list string. So returns array of the names from the bound in the registry. This is one call. Remote lookup argument is string, it returns a reference for the remote object. So when client invokes this, the reference for the remote object associated, like when you specify the name of the object, the reference has been returned. Okay, so this is naming. Rebind, if you want to rename the object, remote object, you can use this. Unbind, which is to destroy the binding for the specified name. So suppose you want to remove or the binding, the previously binded name, you need to remove, you can go through unbind. Okay, so about garbage collection, you have some note which is not required for you as a developer. Okay, so if you have a little like note on it, garbage collection, if you have time we can go through it. Garbage collection. So these are the steps. These are the steps you need to follow if you want to implement Java like RMI. Okay, first one is to define a remote interface. Next, implementing remote interface. Next, create and start remote application. Then create and start client application. Okay, remote application, server machine, client machine. First step is to define remote interface. How do you define a remote interface? Okay, one example, this particular program I'm going to show is calculator. Just add two numbers and return the results. This adding will happen at the server side. Just the call is from the server client side. Okay, so I will pass you all to these four programs: add server interface.java, adder.java, which is remote services, server program, client program. All the four will be transferred to you. Just go through it once. Okay, so if you want to execute, you can execute. So this is a RMI calculator. See, first step is to define the remote interface. Okay, the remote interface specifies the methods that can be invoked remote by the client. Client program communicate to a remote interface, not to the class implementing it. Okay, here there is no direct communication between them. Just you need to define an interface which advertises, which shows the method that can be invoked remotely. Which one we want to show that it can be invoked remotely? That is this method. See, how do you define it? Interface, add server interface, which extends remote. So once you make it as a like this, which extends remote class, that means this can be invoked remotely. Okay, so public int sum. So this is the method. This is the method. Int sum, int AB throws exception, remote exception. This is first step. How do you define the remote interface? Okay, so public interface, add server interface, which extend remote interface. Okay, and you need to, which is from which package? Java.rmi. Okay. After that, yeah, the interface should extend remote interface. The interface interest is known as remote interface as it extends java.rmi.remote. Okay, all the methods should show this exception, java.rmi.remote exception. Okay, so all the methods which can be invoked remotely need to be present in the interface. Okay, that is the rule. The next step is to implement remote interface. Implementation of remote interface. Implementation, that was the specification of the interface. Okay, defining the interface, and now you are implementing that. Okay, so how do you implement? For implementation of remote interface, a class must either extend unicast remote object or use export object method of unicast remote object class. Okay, when a class extends unicast remote object, it must provide a constructor that declares that it may throw a remote exception object. Okay, this is a constructor it has supposed to show that will throw the remote exception. Okay, so public class adder, which extends unicast remote object. So for the implementation, it should extend this particular object. Implements add server interface, which is our add server interface. Okay, and this is a constructor which throws remote exception. Then this method is been implemented. public int sum throws remote exception. What it returns a plus b, the sum. Okay, calculator sum. Simple example. That is implementation of remote interface. This is for the second step. Next, implementation file. All the methods and constructor should throw java.rmi remote exception. The implementation file should extend an abstract class called java.rmi.server.unicast remote object and implement the interface. Okay. Next one is create, add server and host RMI service. Now you need to create the server application and you need to see your server that you have implemented one service now. That is adder, that you need to host it on the server. Okay, so that you need to create a server application and host RMI service adder in it. This is done using rebind method of java.rmi.naming class. Okay, this you have seen, this rebind method. Rebind method takes two arguments. First represent the name of the object reference and second argument is reference to the instance of the adder. Okay, instance. Here this is what is you're doing. You're hosting that implemented service in the server. How? Add server interface, add service. You're creating a new instance of the adder here. Okay, which is your method. Then naming.rebind, add service, add service. Okay, the first argument is what? Name of the object reference. And second argument is reference to the instance of the adder which is created now. Okay, add service object is hosted with the name add service. So this object, the instance of the object has been created. This instance, this object is hosted in the server with the name add service. This is the name. This is the name. You can see the cursor, no? Are you able to see the cursor?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Understanding, right? So now exception E, yeah. Okay, this is how you create add server and host RMI service. First one. Then last step is to create client application. You're supposed to create the client application. Client application contains a Java program that invokes the lookup method. What lookup does? What lookup method does? Lookup returns a reference for the remote object associated with the specified name. Client need the reference to access. Okay, so what it has to do, invokes a lookup method of the naming class. This method accepts one argument, the RMI URL, and returns a reference to an object of type add server interface. Okay, this is visible actually. This is visible to the client, add server interface. Okay, all remote method invocation is done on that object. Okay, add server interface, create an instance, add server interface, lookup, just pass this reference, add service. Okay, so this is the name of the procedure which is deployed now, just now. Okay, and you are calling sum 25, just pass in the parameter for the calculation. Okay, this is create client application. So steps are done. Now you need to execute the program, compile all the Java files, Java C .java to generate stubs and skeletons. So that is required. You can use the tool called RMI compiler, which is invoked from the command line. Just to specify this, RMIC adder. Okay, the stubs and skeletons will be created. Okay, through the RMI, just in the terminal, you are supposed to do this command line. The command generates two new files, adder.skeleton.class, skeleton adder_stub.class. When using RMIC, make sure that class path is set to include the current directory. Okay, so start RMI registry with this command, start RMI registry. RMI registry uses port 1099 by default. You can also bind RMI registry to a different port by indicating new port number. You can change the port number here. RMI registry what port number you have given in the program, that you need to give here. Okay. Then you need to run the server file, Java add server, run the client file, Java add client 127.0.0.1. See how you have tried the socket programming, try this also. It will be good, it will be helpful for you. This type of programs, distributed application programs are important even for your future. Okay, so you can try executing. For more references, you can go through these references. Okay, any doubt here? Any doubt? So then you have RPC also, Sun RPC, which is there in the PPT. Just go through like how you understood RPC, like how we have gone through the RMI. Same way it is there for RPC, one case study, that is Sun RPC. Just go through it. Okay, it's for your reference. Just go through it. Okay. I think this completes this unit. You can start with in the next class, distributed file systems. Distributed file systems and name services. Okay, in the next class. Fine. Anything you want to ask? You can doubt if you have. If you don't have any doubts, you can leave the meeting.